Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at all the changes that have been done to how the game handles combat in the upcoming 3.14 update, and there's been a lot of them. They've completely revamped nearly every existing system as related to combat, including how shields work, how the boost feature functions, and what the ammo counts for all the weapons are. They've also completely rebalanced every one of the missiles and weapons are in the game, they've added in a new capacitor system for all the ships, and they've made changes to the pitch, yaw, and roll speeds, default loadouts, and number of hit points that each ship has. And also a bunch of ships have been either nerfed or buffed when it comes to the number of components they have, or in some cases with their component sizes. So with all these changes, 3.14 is going to have an entirely different feel when it comes to combat. Once this update becomes available to everyone, I'd recommend that instead of jumping right into the live server, that you first go into Arena Commander and spend a few minutes getting used to how this new system functions. It's actually fairly intuitive, and most veteran pilots are going to be able to get used to it relatively quickly. One of the most noticeable changes is that the power triangle now actually behaves the way that most people had originally thought that it was supposed to work in the first place. The old power triangle system was really wonky, and to quickly sum up how it worked, it handled how excess power was being allocated from your ship to its components. So if they're already getting enough energy from the power plant, then moving the triangle around wouldn't do anything at all, or at least it wouldn't feel like it was. Now, if the power triangle is used correctly, it can radically alter your gameplay experience based on how you choose to manage it, and making proper choices is going to have a very tangible effect on what direction a battle ends up going in. What I really like most about this system is that it makes you feel like you're actually making tactical decisions during a fight, which is a stark contrast to the mindless point-and-shoot method that it was previously using. The power triangle is divided up into 3 sections, which affects the rate at which your shields regenerate, the speed your ammo replenishes, and how quickly your boost feature becomes available again. The best thing about it is that you don't have to manage it if you don't want to. You can just leave the indicator right where it is and it'll distribute energy out to all of your systems on an equal basis. But the more you favor one feature over another, the more it'll boost that function while inhibiting the others. Like for instance, energy weapons now have a regenerating magazine, and after you deplete your supply of ammunition, your power triangle settings will dictate the speed at which it fills back up again. So the more power that you allocate to this function, the faster it'll regenerate and the more ammunition it'll have in reserve. But consequently, the more power that you put into the weapons, the less power is going to be going into regenerating your shields or replenishing your boost capabilities. And if you're dedicating 100% of the power to your weapons, then it won't regenerate the shields or recharge your boost at all. So it's going to be up to the pilot, or the co-pilot if you have one, to change the distribution of power from one system to another during combat to get the best performance you possibly can out of your ship. And like I said before, it's not going to be absolutely necessary to do this, but the person who takes the time to manage these systems during combat is going to end up having a clear advantage over someone who doesn't. There's another new feature about energy weapons, which is the amount of ammunition that they individually have and their collective recharge rates are split up amongst all of their ship's weapons. So if you have a lot of guns, you can turn some of them off, which will increase the amount of ammunition the remaining guns have and will allow them to regenerate at a faster rate. Another new thing about 3.14 is that the designers have started to adopt a kind of philosophy when it comes to what the default loadouts are that ships are going to come stock with. For now, they're going to be equipping what they consider to be defensive turrets with energy repeaters, while offensive turrets will be given energy cannons. They're going to no longer be equipping ships with scatterguns by default because of their limited range and because they're specialized weapons. And turrets are not going to come equipped with ballistics unless they have a specific role to play like they do with certain dropships. By default, energy weapons are now going to make up at least 50% of all the ship's equipped weapons, and fire groups are going to be divided up so that Group 1 will have all energy weapons in it, while all of its ballistic guns will be put into Group 2. And that brings us to the second part of the power triangle, which controls the rate at which the ship's shields will regenerate. The more power you give to the shields, the faster it will recover from damage and the more resistance it'll have. You could use the F7 key to redirect all of your ship's powers into the shields, which will make them recover at the fastest rate that they possibly could. And once they're back up to full health, you could press F5 to reprioritize the weapons, F6 to give full power to the engines, or F8 to reset the controls. The devs have made a lot of changes to the shields, which was done to make them feel more like they're supposed to for their appropriate class. In the past, traditionally speaking, a medium-sized shield was the equivalent to 3 small shields, and a large shield was the equivalent to 3 medium-sized shields, and of course a cap-sized shield was the equivalent to 3 large ones. And I know that because of the variety of shield types that are available, not all of the shields are going to always adhere to this 1:3 ratio. Like, for instance, 3 small stealth shields are not going to be the same as 1 medium-sized industrial shield. But the 3-to-1 ratio was the basic template the designers were basing everything on when it came to shield sizes. Now, that's the way it used to work. And 3.14 is going to be a little different. Medium-sized shields have been retooled so that they're now going to be the equivalent to 4 small shields, so they've been given a little bit of a buff. Large shields have been given a huge buff, and are now equal in power to 10 medium-sized shields. Mainly this change was done to create more of a gap between medium and large shields so that large ships would be far more tanky than they were in the past. But to compensate for this, the regen rate is going to be incredibly slow. So you can take their shields down and you're going to have to really work to do it. But once their shields are down, it's going to take a long time for them to recover. There's been a few more general changes that have been done to shields, including removing the shield's hardening ability. This was done because shields now have varying degrees of shield hardening bonuses that are automatically applied based on how much you set the power triangle in favor of the shields. There's also been a number of individual changes that have been done to each shield class. Small shields, which are classified as size 1s, are going to regenerate at a lot faster rate than the other shields do, but they're also going to have a lot less hit points. These kind of shields are referred to, at least internally at CIG, as bubble shields, and some people have taken that term way too literally. It's not actually going to be a round bubble like the shields were back in the day before they started using sign distance field tech. It just means that a small shield is only going to have one shield face that covers the entire ship, so that no matter what side you shoot at it from, those shots are always going to hit that one shield face. On a side note, there hasn't been any changes done to the vehicle shields, which are classified as size 0, or to the capital class size shields, which are classified as size 4s. There has been some changes done to the individual default shields that some of the ships have. Like for instance, the 600 Eyes had its shields increased from 1 size 3 to 2 size 3s. The Asperia Blade now has 2 size 1 shields. The Hurricane has gone from having 2 size 2s to now having 1 medium size shield. The Terrapin's been upgraded to now have 2 medium size shields. The Caterpillar now has 2 size 3 shields. The Constellation has gone from having 2 size 2s to now having a single size 3 shield. There's also been some nerfs when it comes to shields, like for instance the Razors and the 85X have had one of their small shields removed. And the Saber's had one of its small shields removed, so now it only has a total of 2. And lastly, the Ion has had one of its medium-sized shields removed, so it currently only has 2. The last of your ship's attributes that are affected by the energy triangle is the boost feature. And by default, you can boost by holding down the left shift key. A meter will appear on the left side of the HUD whenever it's active and will continue to remain visible until after it's completely filled back up again. The secret to boosting is to stop using it before the meter falls into the red zone, because once it does, it'll take a lot longer to recover than it normally would, and you're not going to be able to use the boost feature again until after the meter has gotten back out of the red. The more you set the triangle to favor the engines, the faster this meter will regenerate. So if you're someone who likes to use the boost a lot, then you can prioritize the engines to be able to use it a lot more often than you normally would. There's a few general things that you need to know about the boost. First off, it doesn't instantly kick in when you use it. It'll spool up for a couple of seconds before it engages. There's also going to be a regen delay that happens after each use. Another thing about this feature is that it runs more efficiently if it's continuously being used for longer amounts of time, as opposed to using it for doing shorter bursts, which is going to burn through your meter a lot more quickly, and you're going to end up getting a lot less out of it. The boost also affects different ships in different ways. For instance, light fighters are going to benefit a lot more from the boost if you're using it while you're strafing. Interceptors and interdictors will get the most out of boosting if they're traveling in a straight trajectory while you're using it, while the boost feature will affect all axes equally for medium and heavy fighters. Another good thing to know about the boost feature is that 3.14 defaults the space brake engages boost to off in the options menu, so if you want the space brake to be a lot more effective, then you're going to have to go in and manually turn this option back on. But be warned, if you turn it on, then you're going to be using the boost every time you brake. So if you like to speed up and brake a lot, then you're going to have to really keep a close eye on the boost meter to make sure that you don't end up redlining it. I generally find that I like to press F6 to put all the power to the engines when I'm setting up for an attack run. And then once I'm all lined up, I like to put all the power back into the weapons. And if the enemy starts lancing with me or gets out of range, I'll press F6 so I can quickly speed up again and get back into position for another attack run. In addition to the power triangle and the refactoring of how all the weapons work, there's also been a new interface that they've added in that's being used for firing missiles that they're calling the Missile Operator mode. You can access this mode by pressing the middle mouse button. Once it's active, you should see a large circular reticule appear around the periphery of the screen, and the top right of the HUD will change from displaying your weapon's ammo count to showing what type of missile you have that's actively being readied. If your ship is equipped with any other types of missiles, then you can switch between them by pressing the right mouse button. While you're in this mode, you'll automatically lock onto whatever it is that you've already targeted. This process is graphically represented by a green indicator that's made up of a bunch of individual pips that will gradually increase in number, which indicates how strong the lock on your target is. The more pips it displays, the stronger the lock is going to be, and the better your chances are that your missiles will end up hitting their target. This mode automatically calculates minimum and maximum lock-on distances, so if you get too close or too far away, the meter will turn from green to red, and the pips will start disappearing one at a time, indicating that you're quickly losing the target lock. If you fire a missile without having locked onto a target, then you'll dumbfire it, which means that it won't home in on your target, but instead will fire in a straight trajectory much like a rocket does. You can arm more than one missile at a time by pressing G. Right now you can ready up to 4 missiles at once no matter what, but the intention is that you'll only be able to simultaneously fire 1 missile for every rack that you have. So if your ship only has 2 missile racks, then you'd only be able to fire 2 missiles at once, and if you have 4, then you'd be able to fire 4 missiles at a time, and so on. This burst fire mode makes size 1 and size 2 missiles a lot more useful than they were in the past. They're cheap to replace, and they have a very short lock-on time. Plus you can pick and choose how many missiles you're firing based on how thick your target's shields are. If you find that you're getting hit by missiles a lot more in this new patch, then one tactic you can use is to try and dodge them, but you really have to get a feel for how it's done. Countermeasures are no longer a guaranteed way to escape missile fire, and you seem to have to do a lot more maneuvering to shake a missile once it starts coming at you. What you have to do is turn hard away from the direction that they're curving at you from. Missiles speed up as they approach, and they can only turn so fast because of it, and you can use that to your advantage. Make sure to strafe and boost while you're turning to help widen that gap as much as possible between you and the missile as it approaches, and don't forget to use your flares while you're turning to help throw it off. You can also use the radar to track a missile's movements to see how far away it is and what direction it's coming at you from so you can time your actions better. If you act quick enough, you should be able to outturn the missile just enough so that it fires wide and misses you, and hopefully by the time it turns around for a second pass, you'll have gotten too far away for it to catch up. Another thing about missiles is that you can now target and destroy them using your ship's gun, so keep that in mind if you're having trouble trying to dodge them. If you want to shoot a cluster of missiles down, then you're going to have to turn and face them first. Then you're going to have to target lock and destroy them one at a time before they can reach you. And it's going to be tough to do and gets even tougher depending on how many missiles the enemy's fired at you. All of these changes have created a nice balance between making missiles deadly while at the same time also making them vulnerable to being either evaded or countered. And countermeasures are useful, but they're no longer a guaranteed way to escape being hit. Now you have to mix using them and performing some high-G maneuvers in order to shake a missile lock. Which, once again, that's the way it ought to be. When you see that missile come flying at you, your first instinct should be to disengage your target and make not being hit by that missile your #1 priority. And that's exactly what they've done. On average, I found that fights tend to last a lot longer than they did before. Battles are more engaging, and you have to think more about what moves you're going to make ahead of time. And consequently, fighting against groups of enemies has become much more challenging than it was before. And this new system has demeted a lot of the light fighters, and that's good because they shouldn't be able to effortlessly take out a medium or a large ship, nor should they be able to single-handedly shut down an entire space station. You're never going to be able to completely make a game meta-free, but they've taken a good step towards returning player skill into the equation, at least a lot more than it was in the past. And that's what I like about this new system. It leaves a lot of room open for people to create their own preferences when it comes to their individual combat styles, and widens out the number of ships that you can use and still be effective when it comes to dogfighting. There's going to be a lot of changes that are going to continue to be done to this system, so it's not final by any means, and I really like the direction that they're going in, and I can't wait to see how it's going to continue to evolve in the future. Well, that's going to be it for this video on the new combat system for 3.14. Thanks for tuning in, and take care.